Let's go!
Hi everyone, Zach here. In this video I want to share how I started with Blender 15 years ago and how my digital art progressed over the time from this to stuff like this. So basically I will show you a lot of different artworks I've created from 2004 till 2018. But before I show you my art pieces, I want to share a little bit of my story and how I started, since I think it's important to understand that it can take quite some time and energy to grow and reach your goal as an artist. But if you stick to it and go through the sometimes hard and painful learning process, it can be quite rewarding in the end. It is really important that you accept where you are right now and that it takes time to learn and make progress. And if you look at people that are better than you, that you feel motivated to go on and improve yourself. Yeah, for all the people that don't know me, I'm a passionate 3D artist, mainly using the very powerful 3D open source tool Blender, and I'm also making a living as independent CG artist by mainly sharing my knowledge in tutorials and online courses. I also like to draw, mainly digital from time to time. However, in this video I want to concentrate on my progress as 3D artist. Before I started my journey as a CG artist, I was drawing, I was building my first 3D models in real life, which didn't last that long. I remember that I also did some pixel art in MS Paint on a friend's computer. I was doing some animations and pixel art with a Game Boy camera, if you remember this old thing. Or together with my brother we were doing this very simple Lego stop motion movies with just a simple video camera and no computer. So yeah, in my entire life I was creative in one way or another. Nearly my entire childhood I was living in a small village in northern Germany. We didn't even have a real house there. We just had these 4 trailers which were standing close to each other, which built our kind of house, and an external toilet, which was freezing cold in winter, by the way. And we had this half refurbished barn, which should become our house at some point, but never did. But it at least had a bathroom, and later on we used it to create a studio with a large green screen, which we used for creating our movie projects, which was quite useful for this kind of stuff. Yeah, and we also had a big yard. We used to play a lot outside with our friends, besides playing video games. Yeah, this one here was my trailer / room after my elder sister moved out. And as you can see, I also had a computer which was able to run 3D software. This was an adventurous life, but I quite enjoyed it, to be honest, although my parents didn't have much money. And I believe that this way of living somehow influenced the art which I'm creating nowadays. And yeah, I think video games also inspired me a lot in my first years of creating 3D art. However, this way of living didn't stop me from starting my journey as digital artist. Yeah, I used a lot of my free time to learn 3D, and I created short movies together with my brother, which were quite funny and crazy sometimes. From 2005 to 2008 we created a full feature 90 minutes long sci-fi movie. It was recorded like 90% in front of a green screen, which we replaced with digital worlds. In this movie I was acting like in 4 different roles, and I was creating many of the 3D assets, and yeah, we learned a lot. It took us 3 years to finish the whole movie. And no, it's not online available, since we used a lot of licensed music, since we didn't have any clue about music licensing back then. But anyway, there's a trailer online you can check, link in the video description. Yeah, this movie and this short film projects I were doing was basically the reason I started to use a computer as art tool in the first place. I wanted to edit my videos, I wanted to edit effects to my videos, and later on I wanted to add more complex stuff like 3D objects to my scene, to have like spaceships flying around and stuff like this. Yeah, we didn't have a fast internet connection back then. Like one web page took I don't know, 10 minutes to load or so. It was incredibly painful to browse through the web, so I was basically disconnected from the rest of the art world. In the beginning I was mainly learning 3D from some PDF tutorials I downloaded or some manuals, but there was no YouTube or other videos I used. Now looking back, I think it was quite beneficial for me not having a fast internet connection, since I needed to learn how to self-educate myself. I was learning how important it is to create and finish your personal art projects. I needed to solve a lot of problems on my own, which helped me to grow a lot, I think. As I started out many years ago, it was a hobby. I was really passionate about it, but I didn't even dream about that this at some point become the thing that I'm doing for a living. But as the time passed by and I was really digging into all the 3D stuff, it was just a natural transition for me from a hobby to a profession. Looking back, I have learned and realized that where you come from isn't as important as what you do with what you have. If I was able to grow my 3D art while pooping in the cold, you can do that too. Alright guys, enough talking, let's take a look at some of my art pieces. Here I only want to concentrate on my more or less private or personal 3D art pieces and animations or short movies, but I will completely leave out the commercial projects I were doing, since they are mostly influenced by different facts like budget, time frame, client wishes, which I don't always share, and so on. Let's get started. In 2004 I started to use my computer as art tool. I bought my very first digital camera with an incredible resolution of 640 by 360, and this camera included a very simple editing software which we used to edit our first short movies, which were basically just a bunch of weird things we did. And we also started to use GIMP as our first image editor. Our very first effects we painted in frame by frame to have some cool effects in our movies. And then we also learned how to use GIMP to create some crazy photo composings. This one here is actually pretty cool. As you can see, usual stuff what young boys are doing. Explosions, war and fighting, and a lot of blood. This one here is my first ever created animation, which I did with a computer. And then we discovered the tool Flash, which we used to create some pretty cool animations. And then at the end of 2004 we discovered Blender. I created my very first textured Blender 3D model, and I also tried to combine Blender and Flash animations. In 2005 I really started to dive deeper into the 3D world. I was using Blender 2.36 if I remember right, and I created my first environments. I was experimenting with some animations, and here are my very first still renderings. And I created a full short film where I combined real-life footage with 3D animation. And I created my very first full intro for my movies, which was completely original, as you can see. But it was really hard to get used to Blender because the user interface back then was so awful and far from intuitive. And luckily we discovered Cinema 4D, and the user interface was a dream. It was so easy to use and it was really intuitive, and we basically started to use this as our main 3D tool. I started to create environments and robots for the 90 minutes sci-fi movie, and I also did a lot of test renders and animations. And 2006 was also a year of learning for me. I was creating a lot of characters and weird looking vehicles. With Cinema 4D I did a lot of test animations and test renders. And I also created a full short movie, which is a bit embarrassing to show because, you know, I was a boy And they're only female actors with, very curvy shapes. But apart from this, was actually pretty cool. I also started to use After Effects and Photoshop and Premiere to do some visual effects, but most of my time I created a lot of 3D stuff. Yeah, in 2007 I did some test animations, also again with some characters. And I was creating a full short movie which is called Fight Against Boredom, where I was basically fighting against 2 robot drones. This was mainly filmed in front of a green screen, and basically everything except me as actor was digital. And you can actually watch it here on YouTube, link in the video description. And I started a long-term project which I never finished, but I learned a lot from this project. It was basically a love story, and I worked for a couple of years on this just in my free time when I had some time. Here you can see the main characters, some test animations in the very first version. In 2008, besides doing some test animations and some test projects, I was mainly working on my love story movie. I improved the characters, I was building the whole environment and all this stuff. And we also finished the 90-minute sci-fi movie after 3 years of work. In 2009, I basically was going on working on my love story movie, but I also finished school and I was starting to work for 1 year in an open TV channel. And there I couldn't use Cinema 4D, but I wanted to do some 3D intros for some broadcasts. And that's why I started to relearn Blender in 2009, and this was my very first Blender animation. I guess some of you might know this Gingerbread Man. I was improving the characters for my love story movie, and yeah, since I started to work, I had less time for my private projects. In 2010 I was basically using Blender and Cinema 4D, Cinema 4D for my private projects and Blender for work. And I also created this 2D/3D animated short movie together with a friend. I did some test animations. I created this huge city in Cinema 4D, which was basically for my love story movie and probably the largest city I've ever created with a lot of details. And I was creating a kind of short movie with a robot flying around in a field full of screens basically showing our old work, which was a lot of work. I created this in Cinema 4D, but I never showed it to anyone. Yeah, in 2011 I founded the company Agenzas Brothers together with my brother. Basically in this time I didn't create much private projects. So let's go on to 2012. Here we had our first intern and we created the short movie Blentrix, which was pretty VFX heavy. And I had to work on this movie and finished it months after our intern left. But yeah, you can also watch it online, link in the video description. And I also was working on a side project. I was creating this reptile character after following a tutorial from CG Cookie. And I created a world around this character and I created some test animations, as you can see. Yeah, in 2013, this was basically my only render I did. It was for an art challenge for CG Cookie, if I remember right. And I was working on a full German character workshop for Blender. And for this, I created this character here. So basically from 2010 to 2011, I left Cinema 4D and switched completely to Blender. Blender 2.5 was starting these days and it really had everything I wanted. I guess in 2014 I was busy with my business, so this is the only rendering I created as far as I remember. And then in 2015, together with a friend, we initiated Sculpt January, which is an event where you create 31 sculptings in 31 days. And it's still running today, so every January we are doing this. And I was doing this for a whole month, one sculpting each day, and it was incredibly hard to do, but really rewarding in the end, because I've learned so many things. I also created this image here, Monster in the Closet, which is still one of my favorite images I ever created. And I created this animation together with my brother, which we created for our movie scene creation online course. Yeah, in 2016 we hosted another Sculpt January event where I completely participated once again. Then I created this one here, The Journey, which was one of my larger projects I created as entry for an ArtStation challenge where I actually won the 3rd place, which was really cool. Then later on I created this animation for a beginner workshop I was holding in Germany. And I created this rendering for the Hum3D Car Render Challenge 2016. And I won a prize for the most creative work back then. Yeah, and I did some other renderings. This one here landed on the cover of a German 3D magazine. Yeah, and in 2017 I were mainly creating a bunch of renders for Sculpt January 2017, which I not fully participated, but I was really happy with the few results I had. Which brings me to 2018. Here I created this sheriff creature for an ArtStation challenge, which brought me an honorable mention. I created this rendering for a tutorial I was creating, and I was creating this dragon sculpture in Blender.
So the next time you scroll through ArtStation and see an amazing artwork, remind yourself that this person also started at one point with simple artworks like this one here. And they went on a long journey, learned, practiced, failed, make progress until they get to this point where they can create these amazing artworks. So make sure that you take your time to learn the stuff properly, and that it is totally okay to create crappy artworks in the beginning, but they will be better over the time if you focus on learning the things which are important to improve yourself. And certainly the journey never ends. No matter where you are as an artist, there will be always artists which are better than you, but if you look at their artworks, feel inspired, see something you can achieve at one point if you put your time and energy into this. Take other people, other artists as motivation to become a better artist.
Yeah guys, I hope you enjoyed this ride through time. And maybe this inspires you to just go on and don't ever stop making art. Now guys, let me know in the comment section below, when did you started to make CG art? And if you have a little interesting story to share, I would really love to read it. So add it in the comment section below. By the way guys, if you like the content I'm creating, you can support this channel on Patreon, link up here or in the video description below. Thanks a lot for watching guys, feel free to like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe to this channel and ring the bell if you don't want to miss a future video. And I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.